2 really simple exercises you can do to get to know your court cards. So the first thing to do is to separate your 16 court cards from your reading deck. This might be a separate deck for you. It may be just that you pause reading for a few days to focus on the court cards. So the first thing I suggest that you do is get your court cards and intuitively and thinkingly, from a heartfelt position, start to go through them and divide them into 3 piles, which is like, don't like, neutral. And if you want, you could also add a 4th pile, which is no idea, just can't resonate with this card. And it can be really useful to do this exercise, and you will also notice over time where you place the cards will change. So I quite like the Page of Cups. I actually like all the pages. I like being playful. I like feeling young at heart. I like not adulting. What's not to like about the Knight of Cups? The Dreamer, the Byron, the romantic card, that beautiful knight on his shining, on his moon white horse. He's even got wings, sort of on his spurs and wings on his helmet. Beautiful. Yeah. I also like the Page of Swords. I like a good argument. I like a good debate. I like verbal dexterity. I'm not that keen on the King of Cups. And now we're not talking here about whether a card is positive or negative. We are talking about how we feel about a card. And because then that's shining a light on our psyche and our personality. I always feel with the King of Cups, he wants to just dive right off that throne. He wants to jump on the boat or follow the fish. This is somebody who is taking a position of responsibility even though their heart may not be in it. I shouldn't like the Knight of Swords because I am too much like the Knight of Swords. That's why I teeter on burnout much of the time, but I like it. I like that determination. I've grown to like the Queen of Wands more and more. I like her charisma. I like her confidence, and you can alter the piles. I would say that I aspire to be more like the Queen of Wands. I am not a naturally nurturing or maternal individual, despite having 4 children, but I have embraced motherhood and I have loved it and I am grateful for it. So I have made peace with the Queen of Pentacles. I like all the pages. I'm going to have an aspiring little pile down here. I aspire to be more like the Queen of Swords. I aspire to be really comfortable with my boundaries and to be less over considerate of others. If you know me, you know that I am still learning to like the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups is selfish. The Queen of Cups is self-centered, and that actually is a good thing, but it is something I struggle with. I know a lot of people see the King of Wands as visionary and inspiring, and it's true, he can be, but I have seen him in too many relationship readings represent somebody who wants their cake and to eat it, somebody who wants to sit on the seat, sit on a position of responsibility and leave it at the same time, so that I've learnt to be less comfortable with this card. I'm not keen on the Knight of Pentacles. I know why I should be. Even with clients, I will describe him as Samwise Gamgee from the Lord of the Rings, the loyal, the dependable. I'm going to move him down to my I would like to learn to love the Knight of Pentacles. I could do with a bit more stability, a slower pace in my life. I think that's something I should aspire towards. I love the King of Swords. I I love a good intellectual debate. I love somebody who is balanced and reasonable and confident, and I think the King of Swords is all of those things. I probably shouldn't like the Knight of Wands. He's a bit too rebellious, a bit too willful, a bit too tempestuous for my liking, but I just can't help myself. I do like the King of Pentacles. I like the fact that he's completely connected to his suit, that it's hard to tell where he starts and his suit finishes. If we compare him to the King of Wands and the King of Cups, I don't think either of them are comfortable with their role, whereas I think the King of Pentacles and the King of Swords are. And I love the Page of Wands. And the thing is, whether you've got one in your don't like pile, if you've got none, I'd suggest start again and be a bit more honest with yourself. Maybe you've got 16, that's fine. Pick the one you like the least. Maybe like me, you've only got a couple. These are the interesting ones. What we're asking here is not what does it say about the cards, but more importantly, what does it say about you? Now, it was some time ago that I was doing this exercise for myself. It's an exercise I do maybe a couple of times a year out of interest, to reflect on the court cards, to reflect on myself. And I thought, I know what? I'm going to grab my book and I'm going to see what I wrote about the Queen of Cups. This would be an interesting exercise. So, bit of a Walking Dead fan. Let's have a look, because I remember reading it and thinking, oh God, that is. So the Queen of Cups, I've got her down as empathic agony aunt. Could argue that's 90% of my job. The Queen of Cups doesn't just listen, she seeks to reflect, to understand, to help and to heal. Definitely me. In conversation, this is someone who mirrors your body language and listens intently, reflecting yourself back at you, asking the right questions at the right times to take you deeper into yourself than you imagined possible. That is literally my job. But when you see the Queen of Cups down here, this is the questions. Be open to healing, whether from yourself or from another. I am notoriously difficult to work with if you're a healer. I would much rather be solving other people's problems than my own. And this is the bit that really made me think, oh God, often the Queen of Cups nurtures others to mask her own emotional wounds. And that is still true. But right now, that's definitely something I'm working on. The King of Wands, notice that I'm less comfortable with the Kings. I'm trying to establish myself as a more visible authority, because actually I'm more comfortable in the one-to-one position. So try this. Decide for yourself, what do you love? What do you not love? Are the cards that you aspire to be more like? And use this as an exercise, not to understand the cards themselves, but to better understand yourself. Because when we use the court cards to understand ourselves and people around us, it really brings the cards to life. And then the second exercise, which again is something I do for myself at various times in my life, is I do a reading with just the court cards. Now, there's different ways to do this. You can just pull one card and say, this is the card that would psychologically most help me right now. You can pull two cards and suggest, I should be more like this right now and I should be less like this. You can look at your whole life, or you can pull different cards for different areas of your life. I'm going to pull three. I'm just going to grab a pen and my trusty stick-it notes, which I use an awful lot of the time. I am going to pull three court cards. One to represent how I should best be as a mother. bearing in mind all of my children are now either young adults or adults. How should I best be, not in my role as counsellor, but in my role as developing my business? And how should I best be just for me in my personal life? And so you can choose. You might want to choose your relationship. You might want to choose a side gig that you are developing on. You can choose whatever you want. You might even want to choose a particular person, perhaps if you've got problems with a sibling or a parent or a work colleague. How should I best be towards this person right now? So I'm going to do how should I best be as a mother right now. Knight of Pentacles, reliable, slow down. It's probably a good idea. I'm always tearing around here, there and everywhere. Practical, loyal, but notice how it's not the Queen of Pentacles, and it's not the king. It's not a king either. I shouldn't be organising my kids' lives anymore. I really shouldn't. I shouldn't even really be overly mothering them anymore. I should just be being reliable, a companion in their life, solid and practical. I'm happy with that. Right now, how should I best be in my business? So not as a therapist, but as a business owner. I'd agree with that. The King of Swords. I should manage my time better. Yes. I should be more logical, more organised, and take better control of my business. I do need to remember to look at my business as a business, because I can get very absorbed in the creative side, I can get very absorbed in the client side, and I can forget to look at the business as an overall. So yes, I'm going to take that. And how should I best be as an individual? As you know, if we strip away my role as mother, if we strip away my role as a therapist and a business owner, what would best serve me? Interesting. Well, I'm stumped. The King of Cups, not what I would have expected. I think, because I don't read reversals, that is reminding me that I don't need to sit in authority over my children anymore. And to take the King of Cups is often the counsellor. And it is true, I live a very safe and a very comfortable life, and I'm very grateful for it. But when I look at this, my eye catches on that red ship, and I would love more adventures. I did have adventures in my 20s and 30s. That's how I ended up in Orkney. And maybe this is reminding me that I'm ready for adventures again. I'll have a look in my book, see if that helps. Just King of Cups, there we go. And I do find my book annoyingly helpful at sometimes. Don't ignore or repress your feelings, but don't be a slave to them either. Be aware of the dangers of always putting others before yourself. I feel that's more of a warning card, that it is time to be more pragmatic about work, to be more practical but less nurturing with my children, and to stop putting other people first and have more adventures. So give it a go. Separate your 16 court cards and play around. There's so much you could do with them. You could think about the different people in your life and you could think, you know, who are they on a good day? Who are they when they're angry? You could think about yourself. You could think, you know, my kids would definitely probably see me as that. You know, obviously, I imagine my clients might think of me as that. You know, some of my friends definitely see me more as the Queen of Wands. People will see, you know, people see us differently. Try and think who would see you as what, and be playful with the court cards and enjoy the dynamic relationship of working with the 16 court cards.